with us is John Veikos, who's the founder of Praxis Special Projects and director of Mosesian, and Anna Sbokou of ASlight. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And we will look, first of all, at the video in the background. I don't know, I guess most of you probably saw the installation in the front, and if you haven't, we really recommend that you look at it. And maybe after the discussion, you look at it in a different eye, so I think that will definitely contribute to that. Personally, I had a look at it, and I was really impressed. I really loved it. And I really liked the part where you have about the seagrass, because I live a lot here in Aegina, and in Aegina we have a problem with seagrass. Seagrass is very important for the sand and the seabed, and we know that. There's a lot of animals that live from the seagrass, but in terms of a municipality, the seagrass is a problem, because all the seagrass comes out of the water and it covers the rocks and it looks really bad, and then it has to be emptied and taken from Aegina to Piraeus to be dumped in a landfill. But we know that in other places, like in, I think it's in Kefalonia, they use it for organic composting. And also abroad, they make a nice wrap, which is waterproof, out of the seagrass, which is quite amazing. So before we start and speak about the installation, because that's what we would like to do, and maybe I'll sit over here so I can see you both. Now, before we speak about the installation, I would like to, if you can take a step back and tell us a little bit about waste and the embedded energy of materials and buildings, and what's the ecological impact of waste and the practices like landfill and burning waste. Why do we have to pay attention? How does it concern us as architects, designers, and how does the practice of cradle to grave contribute to the energy and waste problem that we have today?
First, I'd like to thank the Architect Show for inviting us here and giving us the opportunity to have that exhibition. I'd like to thank Vassilis, BARTZOKAS, and Ilias very much for the opportunity and taking a risk with this idea. And of course, the fabricators who really outdid themselves above and beyond the expectation. Really, congratulations to them for doing such a fantastic job. Waste in our industry is quite abundant. A lot of the materials that we use produce quite a bit of waste that isn't necessarily disposable. Only a certain percentage of glass, for example, can be recycled. Wood, a lot of times wood is burned. The waste is burned, which kind of offsets the advantage of using wood to start with, because you're putting that carbon back up into the air. Marble waste, sort of going through the categories, it's very heavy. You have to do something with it. There's a huge incentive from most of the world now to clean up quarries and greenify them again. So there's large questions about what to do with all of this material that's left when we produce the objects that we love and desire and purchase so much. And I think the question that we posed at the beginning of this thought was, well, why do we value the new so much, and why do we discard the trimmings and the leftovers? Because beauty can exist in those things as well. If you put your mind, if you engage your brains and your hands in craft, you can produce the equivalent of what you can produce with new material, with waste material.
Anna?
No, and it's also the fact that we having all of these conversations about energy consciousness and being a bit more moderate in the way that we design and where do we source material, whether they're local or not, and treating waste as a valid construction and design material is the next step, right? It's like we take the line, still designing in vacuum, but being more considerate while we still disregard what happens to the waste that we've generated within that process. So that's why this is important to talk about. It's the extra step in the energy consciousness process, basically.
Actually, there was a nice discussion before in this panel that architects started to reuse materials because of economic reasons, because they couldn't have the funding, the budget to buy new materials. So they started to look for new materials, and that led to a new aesthetic. So it's really something, a snowball, which is positive snowball. And I would like to actually hear from you about the process of creating the installation, because I think there was something interesting that you discovered and some treasures that you found, and also the response of the manufacturers, and also I think, John, you just mentioned it about the craftsmen. What was the contribution of the craftsmen that took something that was waste and made it something that really can be shown in an exhibition?
Yeah. Well, this whole idea, as we've kind of had this conversation before, started by a marble factory, a marble manufacturer asked us about a year ago to design some objects, luminaires predominantly, as we're lighting designers. And visiting the factory, what we discovered, because we're not architects, so we were not aware at the time, is the abundance of and the beauty of waste that lies around a marble factory. And then we had the idea to design all of these objects out of whatever scrap and waste and cuts and rejects we could find there, rather than designing again in a carte blanche, like an absolute vacuum. And then when we started the conversation with John about this installation, it felt a bit inappropriate to design something from scratch, only for 2 days, and then generate yet more waste. So we started kind of thinking about it backwards, basically. So we started visiting factories of manufacturers that are displaying and exhibiting here, and to start getting an understanding of what is their waste, depending on the material and depending on the process and the type of each factory. They have a different level and type of waste. And then that slowly started forming the final curation of the exhibition.
John, but I just want to say that Anna mentioned that what happens with the exhibition. We'll speak about this because I think this is an interesting point. John, yes.
Look, I think, this was a very nice experience because I had the pleasure of meeting a lot of very, very talented fabricators in Greece, yeah? And people who not only produce very, very good products, but really love the material they're dealing with. So much so that they don't want to throw it away, right? They're keeping it in the hopes that they can use it at some point in the future. And a lot of what this concept is about is tapping into that existing passion and igniting it and giving them a vector, giving them a direction. And the most amazing thing to me was how enthusiastic every single manufacturer was in engaging this concept, because they wanted to show their skills. They wanted to show their passion for their material and their expertise. And in the end, we're in this position in time where we're looking at a lot of machine-made things, yeah, that are yes, they're very accurate, they're very beautiful, they're very precise, but they're cold, right? And we wanted to show that with garbage, yeah, and let's call it garbage, waste, you're able to achieve category A level finishes across the board, right? They're all walls. They're not anecdotal. It's every waste material can be produced into something. And what we tried to show is that, look, you can do a wall surface with anything. With all of these things, you can do a wall surface. And the fabricators leaped at that idea and really just added so much intelligence and craft and value. And to me, it's the second hidden untapped resource. Yeah, the waste in their yard is the one, but their minds are the other, and their skill and their ability to flex that muscle and produce something that was custom but producible as a product really gave me inspiration as well.
Wow. Now, I would like to hear what are the main principles of the installation and what the impact you think that it had on the show. And also, you found out that on one hand, you save money on materials, but on the other hand, you have to spend more on labor. So how does the equation work?
The equation is actually a very good one, dare I say, because you're basically taking material that's already paid for, already has its producing embedded carbon in it, so it's a given, so you're not tapping more into that pot. And then what you're adding on top of that is craftsmanship. What that would mostly require to be able to manipulate waste material and turn it into something that is has a further life and is usable in other applications is craftsmanship and labor. Now, the way that that relates to it, whether it's more or less, it vastly depends on the type of material and what is its further use. But even if you would assume that labor would be an equivalent of, you're already starting from a point much further in its production line. So by default, you're already at a much better state as far as the kind of energy consumption and energy required, be it electricity or water or whatever that may be. So it's maybe difficult to quantify it numerically because it does vastly depend. It goes per case scenario. On the other hand, it just makes common sense. You have, a material that starts from A to end up to Z, and then you have a material that's already at W. And all you need to do is push it very nicely to get to Z, right?
Well, and it also works on another level, works on a social level. Yeah, I mean, we need to start deciding where we put our equity in this world, right? Where, put our money where our mouths are, right? And when you're buying products that are pre-made and you're bringing them from outside and you're not contributing locally to the economy, you have a certain conditions that go along with that. But if you can use, for example, this fantastic building boom that's going on now in Greece as an opportunity to improve the skill set and craftsmanship of the local fabricators, well, that has traction for much longer than whatever this wonderful bubble we're in is going to last, right? I remember, so my grandfather's from Kastoria, he made furs, yeah? And the Castorians used to take all the little leftover pieces of fur and they would stitch them all together and sell fur coats. And they were known for that skill, for that ability to take what the other furriers didn't want and make something that was just as valuable, right? So the trajectory is here already. It's been here from my grandfather, right? So there is a nice narrative that says, while we're entering this new phase of construction, let's rethink actually where we want to put our equity. Do we want to put our equity back into our local culture and our local society, where we're not only improving the economic level of the tradespeople and the manufacturers, but also their skill set and also their notoriety outside of Greece, right? Because, we're in a world economy now, want it or not, and unique skills in the world are limited and they move around. And, maybe this is Greece's moment, yeah? I mean, what I've seen was tremendous in the intelligence and creativity and problem-solving skills that all of the fabricators represented was bar none, right? It's absolutely top standard, and that's exportable.
Yeah. And a crossover collaboration, which was very beautiful to witness as well. Half of the panels that are in the installation are a collaboration between at least two different companies or two different factories.
Who didn't know each other before.
It was surprising how easy that was done under the umbrella of a common goal, a common desire, the outcome, the coordination that we provided. But basically what this installation is suggesting is that rather than treating waste material as a problem to solve, maybe it's good time we start treating it as a design tool and a source of inspiration. So rather than starting from a blank canvas, seeing what's out there and letting that drive the design rather than the other way around, right? It can be just as creative, if not more so, I would dare to say. And the side effects are actually quite beneficial.
Now, I mentioned before that you brought up the issue of waste that comes out from the exhibition. And now the question is that here we are, talking about reusing waste, and we're creating an exhibition for 3 days.
Correct.
What is the plan for the exhibition? Where does it go from here so that it doesn't become waste?
Well, I think we were quite content, let's say, to just be that we generated this fairly large-scale installation for this context out of waste, so generating nothing new, right? So even if it stopped there, that would have been okay. We were very happy to discover that generated a lot of interest, and now this is going to become a bit of a traveling show, right? So this installation will reappear in other similar expos throughout Europe and probably beyond. So it will have a further life to just these 2 days, which is makes the argument even better, obviously, because the more life you give into those material, the more their original sourcing and manipulation and fabricating starts making sense.
Right. And also it becomes also like an educational tool that
course.
moves on. Now, I would like to ask you, before we finish, and I will start with John, what do you like people to take out from the exhibition? They go home, what do you want them to remember and to think about?
I want, you're all architects, or mostly, I want you to consider using waste material on the projects that are on your table now. Yeah, this isn't what we should do in the future. This isn't a good idea. It's been done. The fabricators are interested. They are ready. They are up for the challenge. Really, engage them. They're your allies in this. Engage them and think of a place and a project where you can execute this, because there is not as much resistance as you may think. I think the climate has changed, and the culture is open to this idea. And it was really a pleasurable experience. And I invite you all to engage it. Really, I can't speak highly enough about how enthusiastic I was by the reception that we got and the results that we got. And take it further. Take it much further. Yeah, this is a beginning or middle or whatever it is. It is not anything we're proposing. It's existed, but really carry it along. This is the right road.
I would also add to that if not designing from waste that's already out there, and there's an abundance of, it's a creative playground, literally. I also consider the waste that you're generating as you're designing, right? When you're designing this beautiful spiral marble staircase, this leaves behind very large pieces of waste of that marble. If that staircase is meant to go in a hotel, for example, surely there are other pieces in the hotel, the little coasters, the soap holders, the bedside tables, that can be designed from that waste. So as it's getting a level of understanding of the material that you're using and how is that treated in order to become your design, and what does that leave behind, then for sure there are opportunities of other things to be generated from the material that the big scale leaves behind in any level of projects and any level of applications. So it's just a shifting of the mindset, right? The design process to get rid of the white paper, basically, and start getting a better, more holistic understanding. What do our design gestures mean? And what do they need in order to be realized? And the hidden opportunities that generates.
Wow. Great.
Have fun, basically.
Yes, have fun.
And have
exactly.
fun, yeah.
And I would like to invite everybody to visit the installation and visit also the potentials of a new aesthetic that may grow from that. And that's basically the future of what we're designing today.
We hope.
So thank you very much. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.